Hello everyone and welcome to this month's episode of Jig Retro, where we'll be looking into the Sega Saturn, my setup, some peripherals and the video games for it that I own. As a collector who bases most of his purchase choices on nostalgia, the Sega Saturn was a console I was never really planning to collect for, as I was fully invested in the PlayStation back in the day. The Sega Saturn just felt inferior to me, and there didn't seem to be anything in the catalogue that the PlayStation hadn't quickly bettered in its own library. With a bit of research, I discovered that it has some unmissable titles for the system that you won't find anywhere else. Now I really appreciate having it in the collection. I love discovering new games for it. If you enjoy this content, then please take a moment out of your time to like, share among like-minded video game enthusiasts, as well as subscribe to get the latest monthly episodes, and please check out my back catalogue. Although the system was all in all a complete failure in Europe, it saw much more success in Japan, even selling more than the N64. Therefore, there were many more games released in Japan, and even some of the rarer examples of games in Europe tend to be a bit cheaper to import from Japan. This knockoff Action Replay 4M Plus neatly slots into the back of the Sega Saturn, where the memory card and RAM expansion cart go, allowing you to play Japanese import titles. I believe it also acts as a memory card, a RAM expansion, and gives you access to cheats, but honestly I haven't tested it. The star of the show really is that it can play Japanese imports. Just for your information, this doesn't allow you to play backup discs. I believe I picked mine up off eBay for around the £40 mark, but please use this on your own Saturn at your own risk, because it is by far from an original Sega product. The Sega Saturn was released in November 1994 in Japan and 1995 for the rest of the world. It has a dual CPU, half allowing for the 3D polygonal graphics that we're used to, and the other half allowing for some of the best 2D graphics of its generation. I think this may be one of the reasons for the Sega Saturn's failure, because everyone was clamouring for those brand new 3D polygonal graphics. But I actually really appreciate the Sega Saturn for its 2D prowess. Those early 3D polygons look ugly in today's standards. At the time, this dual CPU made games harder to develop for. Therefore, as soon as the Sony PlayStation started pulling away with its success, developers quickly dropped the Saturn. The library leans slightly more towards the arcade experience than the PlayStation did, making it a fantastic console for a quick pick up and play. One feature that I quite like on the Sega Saturn is the battery backup. Yes, you have to change the battery every now and then, which deletes everything off your system, but it completely negates the requirement for separate memory cards. I personally couldn't be without my Sega Saturn now, and I want to show off some of the fantastic games that I have in the library. The first section is the PAL European games that I own. These are generally the cheaper ones, and I obviously don't need the cart in the back to run them. Sega Rally. What can I say about Sega Rally? For me, it's almost a system seller in itself. The arcade classic developed by Sega AM3. It is common and cheap and a must-have if you own a Saturn. The handling is the most realistic feeling racing game until Colin McRae Rally, which was released for the Sony PlayStation much later. I really appreciate the more arcade style racing mixed with fantastic graphics mixed with that realistic handling. I can always make a bit of time for the original Sega Rally, and I'll always bung a bit of change in it in a machine if I see it out in the wild. This is a great home conversion. Its arcade sensibilities with just 3 tracks and 3 cars is the only downside, but come on, most 3D races at this time were very limited on that front anyway. Wipeout. Now admittedly, I am aware that the PlayStation has a better version of this, and I have the fantastic Omega Collection PS4 release, so there's really no reason to keep this in the collection. This came in a bundle when I bought the system, so I might as well showcase it here. Exhumed is a fantastic Doom clone, and this is an example of a Saturn version being superior to the PlayStation version. It has a smooth frame rate and very cool lighting effects. It's a bit unoriginal and slow to begin with, but its quality shows the further you get into the game with its Metroid style elements. This is the best first person shooter on the console. Virtua Fighter 2. Again, this game has a fantastic frame rate. Developed by Sega AM2 after the disappointing Saturn conversion of the original Virtua Fighter. The 32X version of that game is actually better in most ways. Sega really made this game special. This is a fantastic 3D fighting game that was an absolute blockbuster in Japan and also was really well received elsewhere. This is an example of the Saturn giving us a near perfect arcade conversion, and this game also shows that Saturn doing something better than the PlayStation. Just for something a bit different, I enjoy setting the health meters to infinite and the arena to small, having a more sumo style fight where the only way to win is to push your opponent out of the fighting area. Fighters Megamix. Developed by Sega AM2, Fighters Megamix really is a unique 3D fighting game that incorporates fighters from both Virtua Fighter and Fighting Vipers. The fights take place in a cage similar to both Fighting Vipers and Bloody Roar. This is a good and unique fighter only found on the Saturn. If Virtua Fighter 2 is the best 3D fighting game for the system, then this is probably the second. Athlete Kings is a simple yet fun track and field clone for the Saturn, which has fantastic graphics and over-the-top character models. I played a lot of international track and field on my PlayStation back in the day, and I thought that was great fun at the time. This is actually slightly better all in all, with more colourful characters, bolder graphics and a better frame rate. Manx TT, developed by Tantalus, who had the huge task of converting the Sega AM3 and 4 arcade game to the Saturn. This is one of the best motorcycle racing games for the system. A little sparse on content, but a great pick up and play racing title and an impressive conversion. Sega Ages Volume 1. This is a selection of 3 arcade perfect conversions, even better than the arcade in Outrun's case. Although other systems have tried, the Saturn finally gets them right. Space Harrier, Afterburner and Outrun. This is a must for fans of this era of Sega arcade games. This was easily overlooked at the time as it felt so dated compared to the polygonal 3D graphics, but I can't emphasise how much better these versions of the games are to the Mega Drive conversions, and you get all 3 games in one. This next section is the Japanese import games that I own, and on the whole this is because there's a larger print run of many of these games in Japan, therefore it's making them cheaper than the PAL versions to buy. Street Fighter Zero, or Alpha as it's known everywhere else in the world. This game has the distinction of being one of the first games I owned for my PlayStation way back in the day, and I'm very fond of it. But now that I own a Saturn, which is generally known for being the better system for 2D games, I had to pick up a copy. This is a fantastic Street Fighter game which brings characters from Final Fight into the Street Fighter universe. Vampire Hunter, or Night Warriors Darkstalker's Revenge as it is known in the rest of the world, is another 2D fighter from Capcom that I heard positive things about, and basically I bought it at the same time as Street Fighter Zero in order to embrace my new Saturn's strengths. This is traditionally a Saturn exclusive, but this year it's been included on the PS4, Xbox One, Switch and PC as part of the Capcom Fighting Collection. Panzer Dragoon Spy, which is developed by Sega's Teen Andromeda studio, is the second in the iconic 3D rail shooter series. You are riding a dragon shooting things all around you with simple straight shots of presumably fire or multiple fireballs that act like homing rockets. This is a really fun, unique 3D shooter with some resemblance to Star Fox, or Star Wing as it's known, and Afterburner, but with dragons. This game is generally better than the original in most areas. Dynamite Decker, developed by Sega AM1. Ever since falling in love with the Die Hard trilogy on the PlayStation 1, I was always intrigued by Die Hard Arcade for the Sega Saturn. And then once I found out that it was like a 3D version of an arcade brawler style game such as Final Fight or Streets of Rage, then I had to pick myself up a copy. I went for this Japanese import, Dynamite Decker. Exactly the same game in all but name, but much cheaper now than the elevated cost of the European version. This game is simply a blast to play, and like a brawler with more 3D fighting game mechanics similar to Virtua Fighter. Burning Rangers again is a very unique game that I had heard so much about while researching games for the system. Developed by Sonic Team, this is a futuristic, firefighting, third-person superhero style game. The gameplay is fun and original, but frankly it looks pretty ugly nowadays with its jaggy polygonal graphics and suspect collision detection. Here are a couple of compilation games that I have in the collection that I've noticed have Sega Saturn games in them. Taito Legends 2 on the PlayStation 2. This collection has Darius Gaiden, which is considered to be one of the best shoot 'em ups for the system, and although this is the arcade version of the game, the Sega Saturn version is very similar, and this is a much cheaper option for all you collectors out there. With that said, during my research it is believed that the Saturn version may well be better than the PlayStation and even the arcade original due to eliminating some of the slowdown seen in these versions. So it turns out there's actually quite a lot of Saturn games on Taito Legends 2, so definitely a recommended pickup as far as I'm concerned. It's a relatively cheap game, and yeah, especially if you like your shooters. Great collection. Sonic Gems collection for the PlayStation 2. This little collection has Sonic R, which admittedly is a pretty bad 3D racing title based on the Sonic universe, and I am not proud of it, but it's in the collection. I actually own this particular title as it was a cheap way for me to own a copy of the fantastic Sonic CD, and Sonic R really is just a bonus. Sega's crappy answer to Mario Kart, I guess. With that said, after capturing this footage, it is slightly more playable than its reputation suggests. It at least has the fact that it's the only original Sonic game released for the system going for it. On the original Xbox, Panzer Dragoon Orta has the original Panzer Dragoon from the Sega Saturn as an unlockable, but admittedly I haven't got round to unlocking it. Panzer Dragoon Orta is a fantastic game in its own right though. Finally, this last section are Sega Saturn originals that I've picked up digitally for the Xbox 360, all for their own various reasons. Daytona USA. This is frankly a superior version of Daytona than what was released for the Saturn. It looks wonderful and runs fantastically well. Much more of a representation of the original arcade game than the Saturn version. This includes an online multiplayer. Worth playing just for that iconic soundtrack. Daytona! Guardian Heroes. This game is so darn expensive, no matter what region you want to buy it in. Therefore, digital was the only way to go for me. Developed by Treasure for the Saturn, this is a gorgeous 2D brawler with RPG style elements. This game handles ridiculous amount of sprites and you can brawl on 3 different planes: the foreground, the middle and the background. Nights into Dreams. This character is pretty much the mascot for the Sega Saturn, with the lack of an original standalone platform Sonic game for the system. Nights is best experienced with an analog controller, which is why I don't own it for my Saturn, and to be honest, it was so cheap that I snapped it up as a bit of an impulse buy. Radiant Silvergun was developed by Treasure and was a Japanese exclusive title. This really is considered the best shooter for the system and was a Japanese exclusive. This game is so rare and sought after that if you have any desire to play it, then I would recommend picking up this digital version. This game is not for the faint of heart. I find it hard as nails. The original mechanic in this game is that if you rack up shooting combos of the same coloured enemies, then the weapon you killed them with is upgraded. So all in all, would I recommend the Sega Saturn? Absolutely yes. Even more so than the Sega Dreamcast if I'm being honest, because it has so many more original titles, unique experiences and exclusives that you just can't find anywhere else. If you're into 2D gaming, it really doesn't get any better than this. If you're into shoot 'em ups or shmups, there's absolutely loads of fantastic ones for the system, although they can be a bit pricey. If you're into a more arcadey pick up and play style, then I think you will really love the library for that, and probably in their desperation, but you can't really knock Sega for giving developers a chance with some pretty unique and crazy ideas for games for the system. I'm not sure Sony and the PlayStation would have taken the risk with some of these games. I hope you have enjoyed this episode, and I really hope I get the opportunity to do an episode in the future with more games that I've done research on and ended up purchasing for the collection. As I said before, I've got absolutely zero nostalgia for this system, but thanks to my research and my obsession with retro video game collecting, it's opened me up to this absolute gem of a console. I hope at very least it's opened your eyes up to some of the classics that have been released for the Sega Saturn, as well as helped you keep an eye out for some of those amazing digital purchases you can get now. This means you can dip your toe into the Sega Saturn's awesome library without forking out an absolute fortune. I still don't have a fully comprehensive knowledge of the Sega Saturn's library, so please, if you know of any more classic PAL games or Japanese releases that I need to get hold of, or even some digital downloads of Sega Saturn games, then please get in contact in the comment section down below. I would really love to expand my collection for this console. Until next time, much love, please look after yourselves and each other and get your geek on with Jig Retro.